In construction, we're no strangers to the potential hazards we might face each day. These risks, if not addressed appropriately, can lead to severe injuries or worse. That said, we can keep these risks under control by understanding safety protocols and taking the right precautions. This is where the concept of the hierarchy of controls comes in. It's a system that we use to make our workplace safer and keep those hazards at bay. At the top of this hierarchy, we find hazard elimination and substitution. Now, these are the most effective ways to deal with hazards, but they can also be the hardest to implement. Following that are engineering controls, which involve physical changes to our work environment to reduce exposure to hazards. Next, we have administrative controls. These are the policies and procedures that inform how and when we perform tasks to reduce risk. Last, but certainly not least, we find personal protective equipment, or PPE. PPE acts as our final line of defense. It's an important component of workplace safety, creating a personal, individual barrier between us and the hazards we face. It's there for when other controls aren't sufficient to fully mitigate the risk. PPE comes in many forms, from hard hats and safety goggles to respirators and fall arrest systems, each designed to protect us from specific risks. In this training, we're going to discuss the essential role of PPE in construction. We'll cover employer responsibilities in terms of selecting and providing PPE, PPE regulations and requirements for proper usage, and employee responsibilities for using and maintaining PPE. We'll also walk you through the variety of PPE you might encounter on a job site and discuss how to choose the right gear, ensure it fits well, understand when and how to use it, and keep it in good condition. So, let's get started. If you ever wondered who decides what type of PPE you need to wear on the job, the answer is your employer. It's their responsibility to create a safe environment for you, and picking out the right PPE is a big part of that. First, they're required to conduct what's called a written hazard assessment, which is a thorough inspection of the workplace to identify any potential hazards you might encounter. It takes into account things like the types of hazards, where they're located, and how much of a risk they pose to employees. For example, they might identify dangers like falling construction materials or tools, which signal the need for hard hats. Or they might anticipate airborne dust from cutting concrete or wood chips from sawing operations, which would call for safety glasses or respirators. Now, once they've mapped out the hazards, your employer then picks out the right PPE based on what they found. This selection needs to comply with guidelines set by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA. Now, you might be thinking about the cost of all this gear. Well, here's some good news. In most cases, your employer has to provide the PPE at no cost to you. Though there are a few exceptions, like if you prefer to use your own gear, or for items like steel-toed boots, which are often seen as personal use items. But just remember, any PPE used must meet OSHA standards to keep you safe on the job. It's also your employer's job to ensure that you're properly trained on how and when to use protective gear. They're also in charge of maintaining it in good shape so that it can continue to provide the most effective protection. And lastly, they're required to regularly review their PPE program and update it as needed to ensure it's working effectively. But safety isn't just your employer's responsibility. As an employee, you also play an active role in maintaining a safe work environment for yourself and your colleagues. This responsibility comes down to three important elements: proper use, maintenance, and communication. First, take the time to understand the various types of PPE you're required to wear and how to use them correctly. Improper use of PPE can often be as dangerous as not wearing any at all. Secondly, remember that maintaining your PPE isn't a chore, it's a lifeline. Regular cleaning, inspection, and care of your gear are vital to ensure it's capable of providing the protection it's designed to. Detecting signs of wear and tear or damage early can help keep your equipment in top working condition. Finally, be proactive in your communication. If your gear needs repair or replacement, let your manager know immediately. Encourage your teammates to also use their PPE properly. And if you see something unsafe, speak up. All right, so now that we have a better understanding of our overall responsibilities, let's take a look at the various types of PPE we might encounter on the job and the regulations covering their selection and use. PPE compliance means more than just strapping on a helmet and calling it a day. Understanding PPE means knowing why we wear it, how to use it correctly, and the rules that govern its use. For this part of our training, we're going to take a closer look at considerations and regulations related to the selection and usage of PPE in the construction industry. You know how a drop tool from a scaffold can turn an ordinary day into a visit to the hospital? That's where head protection comes in. Your employer has to provide you with a hard hat when there are potential hazards like falling objects or electric shocks. And these aren't just any hats. According to OSHA, these hard hats should also meet the American National Standard Institute's requirement for impact resistance. Hard hats need to be designed with a tough outer shell and a shock-absorbing lining that includes a headband and straps that keep the shell away from your head, reducing the impact of a blow. Oh, and for those of you working with live wires, your hard hats should also be specially designed to protect against electrical shocks. But wearing the hard hat isn't enough. It should be in good shape, fit snugly, and be worn with the bill forward for maximum protection. And please, no modifications or wearing baseball caps underneath it. It compromises the hard hat's effectiveness. Remember, hard hats aren't for style, they're for your protection. A tiny flying particle can do some serious damage to your eyes and face. And that's why you need eye and face protection whenever there's a risk of flying debris, hazardous chemicals, gases, or dangerous light radiation. OSHA requires that this gear should include side protection, ensuring full coverage around your eyes, not just in front, since hazards can come from any direction. For those wearing prescription glasses, your protection should either have the prescription built in or fit comfortably over your glasses without disturbing them. Now, if you're working with harmful light radiation, like welding or lasers, additional standards apply. For instance, welding operations require varying shades for the welding filters depending on the type of work being done, while laser work requires special safety goggles specific to the laser wavelength being used. Lastly, your eye and face protection should be clearly marked to identify the manufacturer. And this isn't about branding. It's about making sure the gear meets the right safety standards. The key to using your gear correctly is understanding the specific hazards you face and choosing the right PPE. Your gear should protect you, be comfortable, fit well, be durable, and be easy to clean. Construction sites can be noisy, and constant exposure can lead to significant hearing loss. When noise levels get too high or last for too long, OSHA requires your employer to provide suitable hearing protection. This could be in-ear earplugs or over-the-ear earmuffs, but never plain cotton. It simply doesn't lower noise levels enough to keep your ears safe. Using your gear effectively is all about wearing it correctly. So for earplugs, they should be the right size for your ears and inserted slowly to achieve a tight fit. For earmuffs, they should cover your ears completely, with the headband fitting securely over the top of your head, not around the back. Remember, protecting your hearing isn't just for immediate comfort. It's a long-term investment in your hearing health. Working in construction can expose you to all kinds of airborne contaminants, like silica dust from drilling concrete, asbestos from old building materials, and harmful fumes from painting or using industrial adhesives. But remember, not all respirators are created equal. While an air purifying mask might protect you from harmful dust, you'll need something more robust like a supplied air respirator for more dangerous gas and vapor hazards. Your employer is responsible for assessing these risks and providing suitable respirators, but it's important that any respirators provided are certified by the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health, or NIOSH. Now, before you put on a respirator, you'll need a medical evaluation to make sure you can wear one without endangering your health. You'll also need to conduct a fit test to ensure the respirator fits tightly with no leaks. This test should be done at least once a year or whenever you use a different respirator. Remember, looking after your respirator is key. Regular cleaning, disinfecting, and checking for defects will keep your respirator in working order, protecting you from all those airborne hazards. We all know construction work often involves working at heights, and a sudden fall can have severe consequences. And that's why OSHA requires employers to put in place fall protection measures when you're working 6 feet or more above a lower level in construction, though this height regulation can vary depending on the circumstances. Your employer should provide an appropriate fall protection system depending on the task. In addition to guardrail systems and safety nets, this might include certain PPE such as safety belts or full body harnesses and lifelines or lanyards that connect you to secure anchor points. OSHA regulations for fall protection systems specify minimum weight capacity and material requirements, depending on the nature of the work. But these systems should typically be able to support at least 5,000 pounds without breaking and be set up in a way that limits any potential fall to no more than 6 feet. So to stay safe, always wear your fall protection gear when working at heights. Inspect your systems for wear, damage, or deterioration before each use. Adjust all straps to ensure a secure and snug fit. Secure your lanyard or lifeline to a sturdy approved anchorage point. And never use your gear for hoisting tools or materials. It's designed for human use only. When it comes to other parts of your body, appropriate PPE is just as crucial in protecting against workplace hazards. Safety boots with impact-resistant toe caps, puncture-resistant soles, and slip-resistant outsoles can protect your feet from falling objects, punctures, electric shocks, and slips. For your hands, arms, legs, and body, gear such as gloves, sleeves, pants, or coveralls might be needed. The kind you'll wear will depend on specific hazards like fire, heat, chemicals, or electricity. The materials and design of your gear should match the potential risk to keep you safe on the job. Now, if you're working over or near water, additional precautions are necessary, and your employer should provide U.S. Coast Guard approved life jackets or buoyant work vests whenever there's a risk of drowning. To ensure your safety, always wear your life jacket or work vest when working over or near water. Inspect your device before and after each use for defects that might affect its buoyancy, and make sure it's securely fastened at all times when in use. Now that we've covered the various types of PPE used in construction and the regulations that guide their selection and use, let's talk about what we can do as employees to make sure we're as safe as possible on the job. As we wrap up this training session, let's recap what we've discussed regarding personal protective equipment and its role in construction safety. We started with an understanding of the shared responsibilities both employers and employees have regarding PPE. This includes your employer's duties to conduct hazard assessments, select and provide you with PPE based on those assessments, and train you on the correct usage of your equipment. We also highlighted the importance of employee commitment to proper PPE use, maintenance, and open communication with our managers and our teammates. The rest of our time together focused on covering the various types of PPE used in the construction industry, from head to toe discussing their purpose, when they're needed, and the regulations that govern their selection and usage. Remember, PPE is about more than just the equipment. It's about creating a culture of safety where every team member knows their responsibilities and plays their part. Thank you so much for investing your time in this training, your safety, and the safety of those around you.